Microsoft Flight Simulator represents a digital twin of the Earth.
What we call our digital twin.
They've effectively created a digital twin of the planet Earth.
You call it the digital twin.
Yeah.
You literally have recreated planet Earth.
It simulates weather patterns, aerodynamics, and boats for some reason. And yeah, it's a bit rough around the edges, but they've made some good improvements to the physics, the graphics, and boats for some reason. All this got me thinking, what is the future of this digital twin, and what does it mean for us? The current state of the simulator is kind of a mixed bag. On one hand, it looks freaking incredible. Almost to the point you can't tell if it's real life or a video game. Like for example, I see a lot of posts online that compare a real life shot to the video game shot, and half the time you can't even tell the difference. It's also had a lot of improvements since the previous game. The aerodynamics, lighting, the weather and cloud look nuts. Every single tree, boat, helicopter landing pad, and oil rig are all simulated in-game, or should I say, the digital Earth. And it really is a digital Earth. The developers are actively working on making a more accurate simulation of Earth. Here's what the head of Microsoft Flight Sim, Jorg Newman? Here's what the head of Microsoft Flight Sim, Jorg Newman, how do you say this? Jorg Newman. Here's what the head of Microsoft Flight Sim, Jorg Newman, said in an interview with the YouTube channel Simulation Daily.
Do we have that for the whole planet or something? Well, no, it's nobody does. I mean, that's the thing. Like, nobody does. This is data that will have to get made.
Now, Flight Sim clearly isn't the only simulation of Earth out there. There's plenty of people out there who've worked on stuff similar to this. I mean, you can look at Google Maps as just a basic example. But there are also other simulators out there. I mean, Universe Simulator simulates the entire universe. It's a little bit different from what we're talking about here, but it's along a similar line. NASA's Eyes on the Earth isn't necessarily a full simulator per se, but is basically a gigantic hub of data that is taken straight from the Earth from NASA's satellites, obviously. They track a ton of stuff like the sea level height, atmospheric carbon dioxide concentration, movement of the water around the globe. I also found this plate tectonics visualization thing, which is kind of more based around what the past record have been with the tectonic plates movement, but I imagine they also use this data to simulate what the tectonic plates will do in the future. And one interesting note on the tectonic plates thing is that Africa is like cutting in half, and it's literally gonna like cut it in half and make it just look at this, like what the frick? I don't know, you should look into it. But what all these simulations have in common is they kind of suck if you look just a touch closer. Like, if you walk around in Flight Sim, the texture of the ground can look pretty good, but if you look at literally anything else, it's kind of just laughable. But that's the thing, we already have the technology. Well, kinda. So I took this picture in Flight Sim a couple days ago. It's supposed to be a cargo hub area in the middle of Long Beach, but here is the same area in Apple's 3D maps. Obviously it's not great either, but it looks a heck of a lot better. But these issues are being worked on. In that same interview with Jorg, dang it. He made a really interesting point.
So my instinct back in 2016 or something was the world is full of sensors and all we're going to get is better and more data. That is the path we're on. There's sensors on my car, there's sensors on my front door, there's sensors on my phone, there's sensors in the air. Since then we've seen sort of more and more drones being used. I believe we're on this path of scanning our planet.
And it's almost a matter of time until the whole world is basically completely scanned. And now, just imagine if all those issues were fixed, and I don't really know anything about video games, but this seems pretty doable. There could be so much opportunity for video game developers. I mean, just imagine if GTA 6 already had the map made, they already had Miami made, they could literally just cut it out of the Earth, put it in a video game, and then build the missions and stuff around it. Which, I mean, realistically is the content of the video game. And if developers actually did this, they would have so much more time to make the story better, make the characters better. The super realistic physics would already be there because it's a real simulation of Earth. Like, even if a video game isn't set in Earth, they could still just take like the mountains of Switzerland, throw them in the Louisiana swamp, throw some freaking glowy lights and turn up the fireflies on there, and then you have a full-fledged fantasy world, and then you could get to making the good stuff, which is the missions, the story, and the characters.
But these really are just short-term possibilities, even if it takes a decade to implement. But when you start to look a little further, it becomes terrifying. If governments had access to this, that could lead to easier control over the people, or forbid, if terrorists got access to this, that can mean the deadliest terrorist attacks we've ever seen. Let's say we aren't all controlled by the government at that point, we could literally become the Matrix.
Do you want to know
what it is.
But instead of realizing the world isn't fake, people would actually stay in there intentionally, because it's better than their real life. But that's really not too far-fetched, given that people kind of do that already anyway with video games. And even more reasons this could be possible, we're on the literal precipice of an AI revolution, and with people like Sam Altman, who is the CEO of OpenAI.
First of all, I'm not sure that universal basic income is the right solution. It's one that we want to test.
And if that's really the case, what else are we gonna do?
But the possible outcomes don't all have to be this bad. I mean, imagine if we could predict when the next hurricane's coming months in advance. Proper measures could be taken to not only save houses and buildings, but also be able to save everyone that would have been affected. A full simulation of Earth would be able to provide better city planning and fix traffic, minimize environmental impact, and fix energy grid issues. If city planners knew how prevalent electric vehicles would be today, a decade ago, they would have been able to easily plan out the energy grid issues, so they wouldn't have to tell people to stop charging their cars. It would be like the ultimate city skylines. And speaking of California, they would be able to predict where and when wildfires would start and be able to direct first responders to the fire before it grew out of hand. Vacation planning and house shopping would be super sick. Instead of scrolling Zillow like we all do, we could essentially walk around the house and the area without leaving our couch. Farmers could use it to simulate oil properties and probably other stuff. I'm not a farmer. I don't really know how that works. But I'm sure they could use it for something cool. Every plane and ship could be tracked and simulated so they never get lost again. Autonomous vehicles could be trained using the virtual Earth instead of the real one, limiting risk to humans. I got this idea because I remember something talking about like 7 years ago where autonomous cars were learning from GTA 5, which is freaking wild, but that would be cool if they had a more accurate representation. But I'm pretty optimistic to where it could lead to. Leave me your predictions in the comments below.